right, guys. Hey, we're finally getting to this engine. Okay, this is a 05 TRX 450R. Part of the build that we started last year. Finally getting around to it. We're going to get it rebuilt. We'll take a look at some of the parts we got, but got it up on the engine stand. We're going to go ahead and get all this taken off, get the head, get the cylinder, everything. I got it all nice and cleaned up. We did that last year. Need to get it rebuilt, get this thing in the bike. So let's see what the parts we got to put in this thing. Here's the parts. I'll give you the quick rundown of what we got. I'll get to the big stuff. That's a brand new HMF full exhaust. You can see it's got the stepped header, stainless steel with the muffler. We have here this is a complete cylinder kit from Cylinder Works. This is the big bore kit. So it's basically a 480. I think it's a 479, but so there's your new cylinder. Has a forged piston. Comes with it. Rings are in there. Pin. It's got the gasket set that come with it. Another thing that I had in stock, which I'm going to put in this bike, is here's an HRC cam. I actually had two of these. We bought bikes with these in them. I bought one. I don't know if this is the one. This one is pretty good condition. That somebody said it was a hot cam stage 2. Turned out to be not. You can see the 3 grooves there to the left, indicating it is an HRC cam. That's compared to, here's a stock cam with the 2 grooves in the back. So gonna put that HRC in there. Got a bunch of other, got a new Tusk clutch kit. Never used Tusk. I'm gonna try it. I've heard good reviews from it. We're gonna see. Always used the Barnetts, dirt diggers and things like that, but I'm gonna give that Tusk a try. That'll be what's in the bike. Of course, we have all factory Honda gaskets, case gaskets. I use nothing but factory Honda. Brand new Honda timing chain going this far. I mean, it's a full rebuild Honda timing chain. All different seals, gasketing, O-rings, spark plug, new valves, all intake and exhaust valves. And of course need to back all that new engine up with a new filter. So we got the new twin air there. So here's the parts. We're gonna start putting this thing together. I think we said in videos prior when we were ripping down that engine that engine had a new crank in it, and that's how we ended up getting it. Somebody put it's got a hot rods crank, and we're gonna take a look at that. And whoever put it back together put the scored cylinder and of course had no compression. So that's how we got the bike pretty cheap. But let's get going and pull this thing apart and see if we can get this thing together. All right, now we're back to assembly day. We cleaned all the case out. You know, take your time, clean it good. All the bearings in here seem to be good. I've cleaned them, and then I went back and I oiled them, and you can see they're oiled up. So I'm gonna install the crank on this side, but as you can see, the cases are clean, gasket surfaces are clean. It'll be a nice engine once it's back together. Same with the right side case. Cleaned it up, oiled up all the bearings, got rid of all the junk that we saw down in the oil sump down there. Had a little marks in here. A lot of them get that from debris. Just went in and kind of ground it smooth. But yeah, just make sure you're clean gasket surfaces, so when you put those gaskets on, it's just like factory. Slid right in, as you can see. Just let that cool and it'll shrink back down and grab a hold of that bearing. But as you can see, I had the crank. The crank was in the freezer all night. Usually, you could do 2 to 4 hours or something, but this definitely had 24 hours on it, so it shrunk good. But you can see the frost on it. But we'll let that sit, and we'll let that case cool down and shrink back up, and then we'll start assembling the transmission and get this side cover back on it. So, good job. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go through the transmission here. Already had looked at it, but I wanted you guys to see it. But looks real good. I don't know if this is all gonna come in. Here's the counter shaft right here. All the gears look really, really good. Pretty amazed. Again, I don't know much about this bike, so I don't know what abuse or if it had any. Bought it as is, didn't know the history of it, but even the shift forks look really good. I think this one possibly is a new shift fork. It's got still some machine marks on the pads here, so, but everything looks good in there. Something we did find, which kind of stinks because now I can't fully assemble this engine today, because that was the plan, right? Is on the back side, this counter shaft, there's supposed to be a washer here. It's basically a thrust washer, and it was not there. I don't know, again, somebody's had this bike apart. Of course, it has a new crank in it, and you could see that by the crank that we kind of reviewed. It's got a hot rod crank, so somebody's had it apart and put it back together, and it's missing this. I've done a bunch of these bikes. I've found, all kinds of missing parts here or there. If it's, a dirt bike engine, four-wheeler, yeah, it kind of stinks because I can't put the right side case on. I can get the transmission set, which we will. This is on the right side of the case. I just cannot put the bottom end totally together. So we'll get the transmission in there and things like that. But the main shaft, again, gears look really good. No chips, no missing. It does have its thrust washer on there. I mean, even the shaft itself, where it rides on the bearings, everything looks good. Again, shift fork looks great. The drum, shift drum, again, no real visible wear. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I kind of went through it already, inspected. I gotta clean these up. It definitely has crap on them, so I'm gonna clean them up before I stick it in there. But yeah, so this should be good. But wanted you guys see that again. Just be aware that all your thrust washers on that transmission side and case side are there. I know they will go together. And I've seen it. Obviously, I don't know if this bike ever ran after the crank. It does not look like they actually had the bike running after they stuck the crank in it, but I have seen bikes. They will give you finicky shifting, but it will run, it will shift, it will move, but it won't be happy. So anyway, let's get the trans in as far as we can go, and then we're going to call it a day, and I'll have to order some parts and wait a couple days to get them. So okay, so we got the head here. While we're waiting on parts, so I'm going to go ahead and get this thing cleaned back up. We have new valves that we're going to put in this thing. clean the gasket surface up. We'll put lap the new valves in there, and put some new valve seals, and get this back together. So once we do get the bottom end parts in, that'll go a little quicker, and I can get the top end back and not wait on making sure this is all cleaned up and ready to go. So let's go ahead and let's start getting this thing cleaned up and tore apart. Normally when you would take these out, obviously we would make sure we knew which one went where, but put new valves in, they're all going to be different anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and just pull them out, and I'll reset them with the correct shims in there. So yep, normally if you're checking your valve clearance and stuff, you want to know where each one went, but I don't really care, because once the new, like I said, the new valve in there, it's going to be different sizes. Just checking for valve guide wear, and these valves are tight, so not a movement. I can't get them to move, so that's a good sign. Valves actually don't look that bad. Yeah, they're coped. What they do is they get cupped right here. Hard to see, but there's a radius in there, so yeah, they're bad. So that's good. We're replacing them. Oh, Mr. Stinkbug in there. I'm gonna get these valves lapped in and get this this head assembled. As you can see, I got it cleaned up pretty good. I actually glass beaded it. Definitely cleaned up real well. As you can see, I got the intake, the exhaust cleaned up. Hopefully you guys can see all that. But yeah, and then washed it real good, of course. After you bead blast something like this, definitely make sure you get her washed up. But so got brand new Honda valves. Always have been using a Honda, I mean, for stock stuff. Obviously guys are buying other brands and things for aftermarket, but I like to stock Honda stuff for what we do. So brand new. Gonna lap them in, show you, get that done, and we'll get it assembled. Little lapping compound. I like to mix mine up a little bit with some oil, just to give it a little more lubrication as we're gonna put it in there. So you can do it however. I think guys do it a little differently, but a little oil on the valve itself. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's basically, it's sand. It's a grit. That's all it is to it. Nice even line is what you want. It's probably hard. You guys probably can't see it, but that's lapping them in. Make sure, I always make sure I mark them, and then I'll lay them down on another bench over here on the other side with left, right for exhaust or intake. Definitely want them to go back in the same position that you're lapping, of course. Now we can get back and put this cover back on. So we got the shim that was missing. that was the shim that was missing. Got it ordered, finally came in. So now we got everything in the transmission. I can put the cover back on and we can get this thing put back together. Make sure your dowels are in here. Dowel. Okay, we got all the case bolts onto the left side here. They tie the cases together. Get your little vent pipe in here. Make sure you get all the bolts. This is for your little valve, oil valve. Put Loctite on that one. But we're going to go around and do a crisscross pattern and 3 stages I usually like to do. I don't think there's really a torque spec on these numbers, but I usually do like 8 foot-pounds. So I'm going to do it in multiple steps, just work it down on there and make sure everything's tightened up. So let's get that going. Okay, we got the crankcase buttoned up. I got new, of course, crankcase seals. We got a new clutch arm seal, new counterbalance seal, and the D O-ring that goes on that sleeve. The shifter seal, went ahead and replaced that, and I think you saw this is a new oil pickup. That other pickup I didn't feel comfortable cleaning it. It had so much junk in it. So we got that buttoned up. I'm gonna flip it around. Still waiting on a couple pieces for this side. So I'm gonna flip over and we'll get some of the linkage for the transmission hooked up and things, but I'm still waiting on some parts that I found that were either bad or just questionable, that I didn't want to reuse again. So that's the problem when you go through some of these engines, that you run across things like that shim on that transmission that was missing. I mean, if somebody's been inside of here, if they don't put it back together right, you end up, you know, getting into it and all of a sudden you got to stop, and that kind of sucks. But I want it, you know, want to build it right, and it will be. So let's flip it around and we'll do work on the shifter linkage, and probably end up maybe putting the cylinder on and things like that while we're waiting on some of the other seals and pieces. Got the shift drum center right here in. Got this bolt Loctited, torqued down. Got the little spring arm right here. So this should be, make sure it's not bound up. Again, Loctite that bolt. I'm gonna get the rest of the mechanism on here for the shifter, and then I want to run through the gears. Just make sure transmission is okay before I go any further, in case something inside is got to be redone or something. You know, you just don't want to go and put all this together and then fire it up and then find out that your transmission's not shifting. That would suck. So at least right here, all we have is a side case on. We could pull it back off and fix anything. So double check. Let's go through that. Okay, so here's our little shift mechanism. It's got these spring-loaded pawls on here, if you can see that. be careful. As you can see, it wants to slide apart right now. So when you go to put this in, be very careful. It can be a little tricky. Let's see if we can get it on the first try. There's a shift mechanism. We're going to run through the trans, but something I didn't say, but make sure you got this plate. It says up. You can read it. In reality, I don't think it could go any other way because it's got this little notch set in there. So if you flipped it over, it still wouldn't work. But yeah, that's it. Let's go through the transmission gears and make sure everything works, and then we can put the rest of it together. So let's go through the gears here. Right now, neutral. So I'm spinning the counter shaft here. I got a sprocket on there so I can get my hands on there. And you can see I got going backwards. So now we're in neutral. So let's go down, spin the shafts so that it locks in gear. So there's first. Then let's go up. There's second. Third, you can hear it click. Fourth. Fifth. All right, now let's go all the way down. Let's make sure I can't go up anymore. So fifth is fifth, it's locked in. Let's go down. There's fourth. There's third. Second. Now let's make sure we can go all the way down to first. And there's first, up a half. Neutral. Nice. All right, we're gonna get this piston in this cylinder. So I oiled up the cylinder really good, as you can see. This is the new Cylinder Works cylinder. It's got nice etching to it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick the piston in the bottom of that cylinder, and what I'm using is an old spring compressor, a ring compressor, I'm sorry, that I use on automotive, but I've got the rings compressed in there. Now I just got to make sure I get it in the right orientation, and then I can slide it right down in there. So intake valves to the back side of the cylinder, so we know that. Get it lined up straight. She's in there. Making sure not bound up. Now we got to get this clip in there. Always use this leather glove. You can push them pins in there, but if you don't have something on your thumb, most times it's going to hurt so much. So with a little bit of leather in there and you hold the one end in, you can push it. If you have strong enough fingers, you can get the one end hooked and it snaps right in. But this leather glove has been definitely something that I've found out works a lot better than using a screwdriver, and I know there's other tips and tricks to use a screwdriver to get it in, but most of the time with the leather glove, I can pop them in. It snapped right in. So now we get these oil rings, make sure the oil rings are collapsed in there, and we can slide it down. Finally. All right, well, we're going to put the factory Honda valve seals back in, and then we're going to get the valves in, get the springs on, and the head will be ready, and we can get it onto the cylinder, and getting close now. Got the dowel pins stuck in the bottom of this, so they are in there. Gonna try out this new Tusk clutch kit. Never used them before. Actually, I'm sorry, I've used it in the Raptor 250 build. We put a Tusk in, that's right. And it's been holding up pretty good. But this first 450R I've ever used, so take a look at it. Look pretty nice. I'm going to soak it in some oil. Alright, so here's a clutch basket. You can see I cleaned up the edges. It had a little bit of grooving in there from the clutch plates, but not bad, as you can see. I just took a file. Old trick is just take the little notches, but it wasn't bad. I've seen way worse. So again, kinda, if this is you know, the factory one, then it was not abused that bad. So let's go ahead and get that in there. We got the plates been soaking. I've been flipping them over since some of the oil is not covered over all of them, but they've been sitting for about 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and put the clutch in. right, so once we get this clutch all together, I always like to I got a set of vice grips back here on the clutch lever arm back here, the cable arm, and I just like to make sure that you can see it disengage, just in case something is bound up, or as you can see, we got actuation, so that's going to be fine. So just another check, sort of like when you're doing the transmission. Hate to get it all back together with cover on it, get it fired up, and you got something going on there. Yeah, this bike's a little easier because it has a removable cover for the clutch, but some other bikes, 400EXs and some of these other sport bikes, you got to take the whole case off, and that would suck. So just give it a second chance, give it a second look. Okay, stock cam tower. See the stock cam 0405 has two grooves, if you can see them. We're gonna put in this HRC cam I have had for a while. I had two of these, so I'm gonna put this one in and get this top end buttoned up. Gotta take off this this weighted here for the decompression, and I gotta take this retaining ring out of here. A lot of Loctite on that thing, so we'll clean that off. We'll make sure we Loctite that thing back. All right, guys, we're going to do, we're getting down to the wire here. Gonna shim these valves, get the timing chain on, and put the valve cover on, and we're done. So here's the shims we pulled out, or I stuck in to start with. So I have my, what I do is normally the front of the bike as you sit on it. That's how I usually do it, because a lot of times you're doing these valves with the motor in the bike. So exhaust, intake. These are the shims that actually were in this bike. I just put them back in there to see where we were at. Actually, we're pretty close, so that's good news. And there's a lot of shim left, so that's another good news, is the seats aren't beat down to where we don't have any shim left. So this bike will have some life in the valve train for a while. So I got a, basically, we got a hot cam shim kit that I use. Actually, those papers are for the other bikes we have. Always keep that on service in this box, so when we go do it the next time. So here's what I got. Same thing, left, right. We got exhaust, intake. Here's what it needs to be: 0.28 millimeters, 0.16. Here's where we're at. Actually, we have one exhaust that's in spec, so that's great. This one's a little out. Again, this one is within the plus or minus 0.03, so that's in spec. this one's a little out. Ironically, they're both on the right hand side. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. So this is how I usually do it. So we're gonna measure the shims here. I gotta get left and right shim in here. We need to measure that. And then of course I will do what we have now, and that would be how the bike is finalized. Then I have a record of it. So let's get going. Again, just gonna do this quickly. Not gonna go through a lot of this information, but just show you how it goes.